Hi, I'm John Green and welcome to another Crash Course video. In 1803, Thomas Jefferson bought the Louisiana Territory from France for only $15 million, which in today's time would cost $300 million.
Mr. Green, who was that one guy that was in love with his friend and then they went exploring to the west and then they came back and told everybody about it?
Lewis and Clark explored new land in the Louisiana Purchase, which inspired many people to head west. He sustained a fatal gunshot wound while he was traveling along the Natchez Trace Trail, located in Tennessee. There is a conspiracy theory stating that he had feelings for his traveling partner Clark, but sadly, Clark did not feel the same. A quote from Jefferson, "Those who labor in the earth are chosen people of God." Jefferson believed that the U.S. had to expand in order to succeed, which leads us to the next topic, manifest destiny. Let's take it to the thought bubble.
Ooh, go west. Nebraska.
Manifest destiny was the belief that Americans had divine right to expand and settle west. Many people bought onto this idea and began to settle west of the Mississippi River during the mid-1850s. Travel westward was hard for many of these pioneers, leaving their old way of life behind, especially for those traveling along the Oregon Trail, which they had to cross the dangerous Rocky Mountains. When the Oregon settlers arrived, they encountered conflict from the British over the boundary of the U.S. President Polk decided on the 49th parallel as the northern boundary of the U.S., settling tension with Great Britain. A fun fact, the Donner Party, which took a different route heading west, got stuck in the snow and ended up eating themselves and others.
So good. So good and tasty.
In 1844, Texas was annexed to the U.S., and in 1848, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo ended the Mexican-American War. This added the territories of California, Nevada, and other soon-to-be states to the east. This also settled the border dispute of Texas and put the border at the Rio Grande River, further defining the United States.
Now on to the mystery document. Be it enacted by the Senate of the House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled that any person who is the head of a family or who has arrived at the age of 21 years and is a citizen of the United States or shall have filled his declaration of intention to become such a required by naturalization laws of the United States and who has never borne arms against the United States government or given any aid to its enemies shall from after the 1st of January 1863 be entitled to enter 1/4 section for a less quantity of unappropriated public lands. Is this the Kansas-Nebraska Act?
No, it's the Homestead Act.
That wasn't good. Oh!
During the mid-1800s, immigration to the U.S. increased due to troubles in Europe like the potato famine in Ireland in the mid-1840s. Many Irish immigrants fled to large cities in the U.S. such as New York and Boston, and many of them were uneducated, so they worked small jobs in factories. Many of the Irish were Catholic and uneducated, so they were hated in the East. They migrated westward in search of a new life. Another group of immigrants were the German 48ers, who wished for democratic reform in Germany but did not get it. So in 1848, they immigrated to the U.S. The 48ers moved to the Midwest, such as Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and even some moved to California. While there, they started breweries, cheese factories, and many moved to California in search of gold. The Germans were very respected by people because they were highly educated and became very politically active.
I found gold.
The Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882 banned all immigration from China until 1943. This was due to the Chinese coming in search of gold, much like the Germans. But unlike the Germans, the Chinese would take the gold they found and take it back to China, hurting the U.S. economy.
Exclusion Act forbid Chinese to immigrate to the United States, and those who were here were not allowed to become citizens.
Basically, they were stealing all of the U.S.'s gold. We want our gold back, China. The influx of German and Irish immigrants, as well as its existing Mexican people, flare-ups of anti-foreignism began to develop. The Know Nothing Party was developed as an anti-foreign and anti-Catholic party. They advocated for a more rigid immigration system.
Build that wall. Build that wall. Build that wall.
And increased restrictions on voter participation. A new invention that helped transportation to the West were steamboats that were invented in 1807 and became very popular in the 1830s. Steamboats allowed people to transport large quantities of goods downstream and upstream. Another key factor in expansion was the highway network, with the Lancaster Turnpike being the first major highway. The highways were clearly marked paths for the settlers to take west. Another famous path was the Oregon Trail, which led many people to Oregon country. Stan, what are you playing with back there? Oh, it's Thomas the Train. That leads us to our next topic, the locomotive or the train. During the mid-1800s, the train was called the Iron Horse. It was called the Iron Horse because the trains were the new form of transportation. Railroads were a crucial part in the U.S. expansion to the west. For the first time, people were able to move west more rapidly and with less hardships, as many early pioneers did. The country was more connected than it had ever been. The railroad was probably the most important factor in westward expansion. Trains were so important that we paid Santa Anna $10 million for the lower half of New Mexico and Arizona. This was called the Gadsden Purchase. Originally, this land was meant to be where the Transcontinental Railroad would be built. The railroad ended up being built farther north and was made by hand in just 6 years. In a quote from Abraham Lincoln in 1865, he said, "The road must be built and you are the man to do it. Take hold of yourself by building the Union Pacific. You will be the remembered man of your generation." This quote was aimed towards Oak's aims. During the 1850s, Congress sponsored many people to investigate many routes for a transcontinental railroad. Congress officially decided on the Union Pacific and the Central Pacific Railroad companies to build the railroad. A fun fact is the Union Pacific engine 4141 is carrying the body of former President George H.W. Bush to his final resting place. Theodore Judah, a civil engineer, was the main planner of the Transcontinental Railroad. Many of the railroad workers were Irish immigrants. The railroad was completed in 1869 in Utah. The Pony Express was a mail service in the early 1860s that became well known for its fast and reliable service for communication from the east to the west until the telegraph became popular. In the late 1850s, telegraphs were becoming increasingly popular and were being implemented throughout the country. The first transcontinental telegraph was completed in October 24th in 1861 and effectively replaced the Pony Express system. Telegraphs were crucial to the expansion to the west because messages could be sent faster than ever before using Morse code, which is a series of dots and dashes. Clipper ships were small, sleek, fast ships used for trade between the eastern and western United States. Clinton's Big Ditch was another more derogatory name for the Erie Canal. This canal connected the Houston River and Lake Erie. It made trade from the east to the west faster and more efficient. It was created by Governor Clinton in 1817 and took 8 years to build.
Is this a big enough ditch?
That's all for this crash course. Thank you for watching. Lewis and Clark explored land. Okay, hold on. Stan, what are you playing with? Oh, Okay, so.
All right,